Once again, the topic of discussion will be, how do we train our lawyers better? Our eminent set of panelists include Mr. Faizan Mustafa, Vice-Chancellor, Nalsar, Mr. S. Prabakaran, Co-Chairman, Bar Council of India, Ms. Sudha Ramalingam, Senior Advocate and Law Professor, and the chairperson for this panel discussion will be Mr. R. Venkata, Chancellor, NLS, Bangalore. A warm round of applause, ladies and gentlemen, as we welcome our panelists on stage, please. Since we have one more session after this, we'd like to conclude within the allotted time. I will hand over the proceedings to the chairperson, and then each speaker gets about 8 to 9 minutes to express their views individually, post which a group discussion will take place, and finally a quick Q&A will follow. Thank you very much, and I now hand over the proceedings to Mr. Venkata. Over to you, sir. May I request all of you to settle down, please? Mr. Venkata, the stage is yours.
Distinguished panelists, most revered Honorable Justice Devdas Ji, ladies and gentlemen, I was a student of literature and we used to study 12th Night of Shakespeare, and my literature teacher, who is still alive, on 13th January contacted me and said, you must now give up studying 12th Night and you must start studying 12th midday January 2018. That's what he said. Be that as it may, in the wake of post-12th January developments, this session on lawyers would be of epoch-making significance, and we have a very distinguished panel of law academics, and a person spearheading the Bar Council of India, guiding the destiny of the premier school of legal education, National Law School of India, University, Bangalore. I have basically 3 issues before the panel. The first one is, where does the training of a lawyer begin and where does it end? Does it begin in law school, law college? And does it continue till we breathe our last? Is it happening in our country? Then the second one is lawyering for well-being or for being well-off? Prabakaran ji, an eminent advocate from this part of the country, says we have 2 types of lawyers, star lawyers and starving lawyers. So where do you draw the line? The third one is 21st century lawyering. Is it not radically different from the lawyering of the yore? And 21st century problems, can they be solved with a 20th century mindset and 19th century working tools? Lawyering transcends beyond litigation and traverses through different parts of the domain. So, where are we? Then, a session following the session on economics, when intellectual capital is replacing physical capital in knowledge economy, what is the role of lawyers? Ladies and gentlemen, I need not remind you the wonderful document which lawyers have given us. More than 60% of the members of the Constituent Assembly were advocates. And this document called Constitution of India weathered many a storm, and in the last 70 years grew from strength to strength, whereas the constitutions in other parts of the subcontinent collapsed like a pack of cards. With such a wonderful constitution which was given to us mostly by advocates, what is the role that is expected of lawyers? Then the oft-repeated cliche, today's knowledge is tomorrow's ignorance. And where do lawyers stand? Today we have with us a representative from an organization which brought a paradigm shift in legal education. 31 years ago, a star was born in Bangalore, the star called National Law School of India University. But the idea was conceptualized by Bar Council of India. And today you have more than 22 law schools, each one a byword for excellence. But first is always the first, and the genial seeds were laid by Bar Council of India, which brought about that paradigm shift. What is expected of Bar Council of India in 2018 in maintaining not only standards in legal education and professional standards? So I would reserve my observations for the end and request my distinguished panelists to speak to us as to what is this lawyer bubble. In the United States of America, a book was written just 2 years ago saying that even in the United States, the bubble is getting exploded. And a Yale Law School graduate of 2009 committed suicide. His name was Mark Levy because he loved practice of law but struggled with the business of law. This was the sentence that he used it. I loved practice of law, but I'm struggling with the business of law. When he was terminated from service from a very famous legal firm in the United States, a gold medalist from Yale Law School committed suicide. Now, what happened in Yale in 2009, will it, God forbid, happen in India soon? Where do we stand? May I request the distinguished panelists to share their views, starting with Faizan and Mustafa. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Rao. We do have a number of, we had in past incidents of suicides on law school campuses.
Mustafa.
And why we have suicides? Because we are having too heavy an academic rigor in law schools. If I can straight away answer your last question, when I did law, we had only 18 subjects to do. Now, in most national law schools, we are doing about 50. In some, we are also doing 60. And we expect our students to write as many as 50 research papers in 5 years. To become a professor, you need to write only 5 papers. And we expect somebody who has done class 12 to write 50 research papers. And then you have sessionals and mid-semesters and moot courts. So therefore, you may have suicides on campuses because somewhat our schedule is very tight, and it's very difficult for many students, particularly coming from disadvantaged backgrounds, to take that trigger. But to start with, I am reminded of first Shakespeare, who said that the first thing we should do is to kill all lawyers. I don't agree with him, because if lawyers are not there, then we will lose our profession. But why we should not kill our lawyers? We should not kill our lawyers because they raise causes. They talk of social justice. They initiate the rights revolution. And that's why in most countries in the world, the freedom struggle was led by lawyers. And of course, India has a distinction of throwing up best leaders, which any freedom struggle in the world may have seen. Now, the problem with our, you see, last session I heard it for last few minutes, 10 minutes or so. Chawla Sahib is here. I think this whole idea in terms of knowledge that it is Indian and it is Harvard and it is Oxford, That idea is flawed, because if you come to training of lawyers, we don't have textbooks written by Indian academics. On most subjects in law, we have to rely on this borrowed knowledge. We still don't teach Indian jurisprudence. We have to teach the Western jurisprudence. And don't we really, Mr. Chawla, celebrate when somebody from Indian origin gets Nobel Prize? I feel wherever we go, if my father or my grandfather was an Indian, we will have an Indian heart. And therefore, whether somebody is educated in Harvard or in Cambridge, that doesn't mean that he loses Indian heart. The DNA will remain the same. So now coming to our legal education and training of our lawyers, Professor Venkata Rao very rightly talked about business of law. You see, we have legal education. We don't have justice education. And as a result, at least now, when students are admitted, parents will come on orientation. They ask me, they ask Professor Venkata Rao, package kitna milega? And our students are also writing to law firms, if you are offering less than 20 lakhs, don't come on our campus for placements. So people are coming to national law schools not because they want to become good lawyer, they want to become corporate lawyers. And why not? If our fees are 10 lakhs, 12 lakhs, they have to take education loan, they have to pay back that loan. And sorry, with Bar Council senior colleague of mine, senior lawyers don't pay enough. They earn a lot. But if a bright student from Nalsar will go to them, they either will not pay anything or they will pay pittance. So therefore, it is a responsibility of senior lawyers also to train lawyers. When I was in Orissa, I also founded National Law University in Orissa. So their governor, Mr. Bhandare. Now he was once telling me about his classmates. So his classmate was Nariman. And classmate was late Anil Dewan. And he was telling me he was taught by Palkiwala and Chandrachud, senior Chandrachud, Dhananjay Chandrachud's father. So at that point of time, leading lawyers were finding time to go to law colleges and engage students in morning classes. Now lawyers are not coming to law colleges. And since if lawyers of that stature don't come to law colleges, of course we are not training our students well. The other issue I want to flag is what kind of lawyers? Venkata Rao Sahab rightly said, so you will have corporate lawyers, you will have litigation lawyers. Within litigation lawyers also there will be difference. Some of my brightest students may go to Supreme Court or High Court. But if I take them to district court or a mufassil court, they will be completely put off. They will never go there. The real action in law does not take place in Supreme Court. It does not take place in High Court either. It takes place at the lower court. And these so-called, as Manmohan Singh once said, that in a sea of mediocrity, we have few islands of excellence called national law universities. If you look at total number of law graduates we get in a year, all of us, all national law universities, 20, 22, whatever, taken together, only about 2,000 graduates will go out of them. While about 55,000 or so will come out from other law colleges. We have not done anything to improve legal education in those law colleges. And we have become elitist. Therefore, our students are not going to lower courts. Our students are either going to corporates or they are going to Supreme Court, very few of them. Then you have, we keep saying in our country, oh, there is so much of delay in adjudication. We must have alternative dispute resolution, arbitration, which I call privatization of justice system. So big corporates don't go anymore to our courts. They will write in their contract, that the matter will be settled by through arbitration. Each party will nominate a retired Supreme Court judge as an arbitrator. And these meetings, arbitrators' meetings, will be held in a hotel like this. And what kind of justice system is this? The parties choose judges. They can also choose law. So we may say, okay, Singapore law will apply. Singapore is hub of arbitration. So death of civil justice system is taking place. We are making an excessive use of criminal justice system. So you have a problem of triple divorce, criminalize it. Because we don't have faith in our regular civil justice system. Do we train enough our students who want to take up career in arbitration, in mediation, in conciliation, where you will not have this adversarial model where two parties are arguing against each other and the judge is a neutral umpire? And therefore, I want to say, even if you look at numbers, in India, for a population of 1,800 people, we have one lawyer. And I am not on the quality of this lawyer. Most of these lawyers are briefless lawyers. Most of these lawyers cannot earn enough to get their coat dry cleaned because we have not given them good education. We have not trained them well. And when I'm talking of train them well, I'm on competence. I'm not even talking of ethical value system which we teachers must inculcate in them. Many years ago, Justice Kajju in one judgment in his characteristic style said, oh, something is rotten in Allahabad. So I had to write a piece, Chawla Saab, on this. That if something is rotten in Allahabad, Kajju must be knowing he's from Allahabad only. But the problem is whether our judges are corrupt or not, CBI, IB should know. But they don't know law. And I confessed in this article, Professor Rao, on behalf of the entire legal academia, we are guilty. If India has bad lawyers, I plead guilty. If India has bad judges, I am guilty. Because I gave them degrees. I certified that they have attained that sufficient level to practice. And if they don't have ethical values, if they do business, if they are not taking up causes, then of course I am guilty. I have not inculcated that value system in them. So, as against India, when for 1,800 people we have only one lawyer, with big question mark about the competence of most of them. In England, for every 300 people you have one lawyer. And mostly a competent lawyer. So what it makes a lawyer? What is a lawyer? A lawyer needs to have the ability to stand up, to fight the system, to raise voices. In our national law school system, this will not happen. Why it will not happen? Because national law schools are now governed by judges. Lord Denning, for instance, when one senior judge of a Supreme Court once said, well, Professor Mustafa, why no one from Indian academia anymore criticizes our judgments? So I told Chawla Saab, they will not anymore because you are bosses. The Chancellor of Law University is a Chief Justice. The Visitor of National Law University is Chief Justice of India. There was a time when Lord Denning said that there is a court superior to House of Lords. You know, till 2009, House of Lords was the highest court in England. There is a court superior to House of Lords called Law Quarterly Review, which was a journal. Judges in England, judges in the United States used to look forward to that journal. Oh, we have given this judgment. We really don't know how academia, students are going to react to it. That critical thinking, questioning that judgment can be wrong. We are creating an India where if you say this judgment is wrong, First of all, you will become anti-national. So if you say national anthem judgment, singing of national anthem in cinema halls was probably not right because people are paying for entertainment. Of course, now they have made it optional. That too, the decision is with the owner of cinema halls. If you write this, you will be called anti-national. So we need to inculcate, first of all, this capacity to stand up and say this law is wrong, this rule is wrong, this judgment is wrong, and take up causes. Very few lawyers now take up causes. And those who are take up causes, they are not treated very kindly by the courts. Sometimes they are also penalized. You saw how Prashant Bhushan was penalized recently. But once I told Prashant Bhushan and Nandita Haskar, well, you come from a very good background. So you can afford to take up causes because you don't need money to survive. Many of my students who are first generation lawyers, who are not son and daughter of Shanti Bhushan or a senior bureaucrat, as in the case of Nandita, what do? And we have not created any system that they will earn enough. And if they cannot earn enough, whether they want it, they don't want it, they have to go to corporates. And if they go to corporates, they will never get the courage to stand up in a court of law and challenge the system. In emergency, for instance, I give you one example. There was a news that Jethmalani is going to be arrested in Kerala somewhere. Next day, 200 lawyers in Bombay High Court signed up that we stand up, we want to appear on behalf of Jethmalani. There were lawyers who challenged emergency in the court of law, move habeas corpus, and as many as 9 courts accepted their argument. It's a shame that our Supreme Court did not accept it. And the decision of these 9 high courts was overturned. Good, at least the Sun has stood up in 2017 and said ADM Jabalpur was wrongly decided. Therefore, we need to look at our curriculum. We are loaded with corporate law courses because that sells. IPR, corporate law. If you are talking of litigation at the lowest court, at the mufassil level, you need to train people in evidence. I did 2 semesters in evidence. Now our BCI curriculum says 1 semester. I did 2 semesters in CRPC. Now they say 1 semester. So we have reduced the courses which will have an implication. We no more teach in law schools land law as a compulsory course. When I did law, if you are from UP, you have to do UP land laws. If you are from Bihar, mandatory course in land laws. It's good that national law schools have brought back the prestige of legal education. And we are, at least in national law schools, getting best of the students. Whether we teach them, we don't teach them, they will excel in their life. They will do well in spite of us. If we want to train our lawyers better, we should go to other law schools other than national law schools, where infrastructure is not there, where books are not there, where teachers are not there. And why good teachers will join academia? We have not made academics as an attractive career option. Why our institutions are still, Sunaina Singh ji is here, Vice-Chancellor centric. That kind of decentralization has not taken place. Why our clinics are farce? It's in name. We don't take really people to the courts, lower courts. The internships are done in some of the leading NGOs, and that's it. I will end here and come back if needed, but I very strongly feel that we must take up the academic social responsibility of training teachers of other colleges in our states. And as we discussed, Professor Rao, 2 days ago, in the Bar Council of India meeting, just like in United States, every 5 years the lawyers have to get their license renewed. They have to undertake some training. Once you go out of a law school, some kind of wisdom doesn't come to you, you know. Therefore, you must keep reading. It's a specialized lawyering now. Even judges don't understand what is cyber law. If you look at the proceedings today, from some of the questions which came from bench on Aadhaar matter, it seems they are not understanding technology. And therefore, let lawyers also come back to law schools, have some kind of training every 5 years, and let teachers be allowed to practice. You see, my students will go to the court only when I will go to the court. Why Bar Council does not allow academicians to practice? At least allow academicians to practice in public litigation matters. When I will stand up and argue in a court of law, 20 students whom I am training every day will get motivated and come to that court. Thank you very much.
That was Professor Faizan Mustafa, Vice-Chancellor, Nalsar, Hyderabad. A countenance more of sorrow than anger at what is happening. Okay. And justice education, we have kept it at a judicious distance, and hence the consequences. Now, what importance should be given to pro bono lawyering by all the stakeholders? What is that we are making lawyers understand? Well, Madras High Court itself said you have letterhead law colleges all over the country. Recalling the famous words of Shettleward, who said, India had the brilliant tradition of producing brilliant lawyers, not because of law colleges, but in spite of law colleges. Does it still hold good? And at this critical juncture, what is the role of the Bar Council of India in restoring the levels of the confidence of the people in the institutions? Because a popular example of oxymoron with English grammar teachers is, they say the best oxymoron is an honest lawyer. Therefore, how to maintain the highest ethical standards in the legal profession so that the credibility of the institution is restored. We have a person of no less importance than the co-chairman of the Bar Council of India, Sri Prabakaran ji. May I welcome you to come and share your views.
Respected Venkata ji, Mustafa, Madam Sudha, Ramalingam, Justice Devadas, and respected viewers. See, as far as the Bar Council of India is concerned, in the dais, the two persons, particularly in Mr. Rao, Venkata Rao, the National Law School in Bangalore is the brainchild of the Bar Council of India. It started in the year 1980s. And Faizan Mustafa is the Vice-Chancellor of Nalsar. After started the National Law School, as far as the Bangalore National Law School is concerned, it reached far away, particularly in the compete in the international standards. If the lawyers are not trained properly, the Bar Council of India will blame, at this stage, we can blame only two persons. One is Venkata and Faizan Mustafa. Why I am saying this? The number of occasions, particularly in a matter of High Court, has passed in a number of judgments, the orders, stating that there are many number of letterpad colleges nearby the states, particularly in Karnataka, Andhra, in Kerala, and somewhere in the North India, the UP and other states. But the Venkata had an experience, and I myself had an experience past 5 years, nearly 6 years, I think. The legal educations, which we convene a meeting, we invite a number of the Vice-Chancellors from throughout the country. Now there are more than 21 national law schools are open. And we particularly discussed which has been made. And I remember, I went for inspection regarding the Nalsar. I asked Nalsar, Mr. Mustafa, please start some other courses. I have given permission, but you declined. That time I said specifically, why I said, the national law schools come forward to admit a number of students, and your training is entirely different. The Shastra is also here. And V18, many number of colleges, in 2 or 3 colleges, the private colleges in Tamil Nadu. But the comparative with the government law colleges, either in Pondicherry or in Chennai, even in Delhi, the ratio is 1:40. The legal education councils will permit each classes 60 students. But whereas in the national law schools, totally they are admitted only 80. In the 80, how they are training, I had been seen number of occasions, because I used to go very often in all the legal education meeting, particularly the Honorable Mr. Justice A.P. Misra. He requires to conduct all the legal education meeting in national law school only. We go and see there how we are the table which has been arranged now. Once retired Supreme Court judge and 5 students surrounding, and they will teach the law. I'm asking Mr. Rao itself, how many colleges in India, particularly, giving this type of training to the law students? Because we are saying how to train the good lawyers, how to train the legal fraternity. First the law students, after the enrollment, they will go for so. Mustafa rightly pointed out, those who, after completion of the course from the national law schools, many of them, they are prefers to corporators. Only few, that's only the minimal, goes to the litigations for the court purpose. You can go to corporate office, you can put the contract, you can draft everything, but one more interesting thing is there, the litigation lawyers, once they enter into the profession, even whatever the students who studied in the National Law School, Nalsar or NLSU or everywhere, whatever the drafts done by them, the person who is practicing in High Court, which in a fraction of seconds, they identify the mistake and they fight the court, they succeed the cases. So therefore, training for the lawyers is entirely different from the education's level. Education is different. Mr. Rao sitting there, I know, I have seen number of occasions Rao, how he is trained, is a very liberal. When the one issue has been raised there in the Bangalore, the lady students, the women students for dress which has been raised the problem. Then I had been a little bit strict because I had been the number of committees there. I said, no, this should not be correct, this, that. But the earlier, some other professor, I think, he was suspended for some time. And then thereafter, Rao came. Rao adjust. Rao really, no, that and all, leave it. Students is like that only. We have to teach them, let he teach, and he succeeded in those students. But what I have been trying to say, the training to the lawyers community, the honesty, the 7 lamps of advocacy, honesty, courage, industry, wit, eloquence, judgment, fellowship. Unless, without holding these qualities, you can't find a good lawyer. The good lawyer, the duty of the colleges, Mustafa said one point is that point has to be, think over it. But the academicians, the faculties, those who are taking classes, if permits to practice, the good lawyers, they are not coming to the taking classes in the colleges. The faculties, very low salary. We are not in expected level. If it is so, because the problem is going in Delhi, I have given my opinion also, whether the MPs, MLAs can practice, that question has been raised. I have already given an opinion for the subcommittee, and other 3 persons also given another opinion. Matter is going to be discussed on 21st. In such circumstances, Mustafa raised in this issue, why don't you consider the academicians to practice? Only one problem. If you received a salary, can you practice under the law? The Bar Council of India rules section 49 does not permit. So therefore, these are the issues are there. But training a good lawyer is concerned. What I am requesting, the government has to show their eyes, otherwise it's very difficult. In Delhi, Rao must be remembered, Delhi, 2,000 students have been admitted. I said, I opposed it tooth and nail. No, you can't admit 2,000 students because we are permitting only 60 and 5 sections, only 300. Where is 300? Where is 2,000? So therefore I said, you can't. But the Delhi High Court has said, no, we are all studied in Delhi University. Therefore, this time you permit. The earlier occasion we permitted, and another, this year also, again they admitted the students, and they permitted 2,000. When you are permitting 2,000 students, can you expect the good lawyers among the legal fraternity? There are lawyers of 2 kinds. My friend has said in a different angle, I will say 2 and 1 angles. One is the vociferous lawyers, and another one is docile. The vociferous means the lawyer will fight for the cause of justice, social justice. Wherever the injustice takes place, he will fight for in a vociferous manner. Some of the docile in nature, they will choose us the arbitration work and admiralty jurisdiction. Like that, the civil cases, they are appearing. How to train? How to train them? The courage is a must. And eloquence. I have seen particularly in Tamil Nadu, there are in Chennai alone, nearly 20,000 lawyers are practicing in and around the city. The problem, only one problem is those who are appearing before the courts, that's a different issue. The language skill is the more important. If you are not having the language skill, definitely you can't practice in the high courts. That's a bit more difficult. So therefore, the training is concerned. because in the stage itself, myself and Sudha Ramalingam is entirely different category. We are cause of lawyers and everything, we are fighting, we are in the courts, that is different. But whereas Mustafa and Venkata Rao, the legal education is concerned, more and more concerns the competency of the persons to look into the legal education. The legal educations, the strengthening the Bar Council of India, we have a program for strengthening the legal education, particularly in all the meetings. Whenever we are conducting in Delhi, Mr. Rao was present in all the cases, and he will give some ideas every time. And occasionally I myself will ask, and sometimes heavy fights in the discussions panels in the Bar Council of India. Sometimes I will not agree, because our country is number of people, the remote villages, particularly in Bihar, downtrodden peoples, even in Tamil Nadu, the remote villages, the many number of peoples are coming here for the education purpose. Even they are not able to speak in English. In such a circumstances, those students, in the School of Excellency, I can give one example. In the School of Excellency, the peoples have been admitted in School of Excellency, they got this scored 98%, 99%, 97% like that the people has been scored. When we go and meet them to explain, they are not able to speak in English. So what is the problem? Where the problem is? If these persons has completed the course and enrolled as a lawyer, how they can manage in the system? These are more important. My professor, Mr. Justice Devdas here, and he will say, number of places, in number of judgments, he will say, the justice to be done, it seems to be done. It should reaches the people. So therefore, we have taken the Bar Council of India, taking a tough task in all ways. Now there are 1,400 colleges, I think, throughout India. In the last week, in Supreme Court, the one matters came. Justice Arvind Mishra said, there are a number of law colleges has been opened. We cannot permit. And we also closed nearly 40. The basic infrastructures have failed. So therefore, we have closed down. But in UP and Gujarat, in many number of places, the law colleges has opened the multi-sectors. Peoples has been opened the law colleges. But nowadays, it is a very far-reaching. So I request, please the person, those who are all the government persons, take it in a very serious manner and give more and more facilities to the colleges to develop the legal education. Thank you very much.
Well, in fact, in the states of Jharkhand, Gujarat, and Kerala, academies have been started by the Bar Council of India for the continuing legal education. And now we have Sudha Ramalingam ji, senior advocate, who will explain to us as to how to make lawyers more responsible and more responsive towards the court, society, public, and the clients.
Thank you, sir. Good evening to everyone. I come from a first-generation lawyer's family. I'm a first-generation lawyer as such. We have among the dignitaries here, Dr. Devadas, the former Justice of the Madras High Court, whom I really respect, who was the earlier district and principal district and sessions judge. I value him more as a principal district and sessions judge than even an high court judge. For the simple reason, sir, that it is in the trial courts that we really practice law. Every other place, it is a play of words, academic skills, which come to play, and it is the files that speak, not the human beings. It's the real blood and the real matter and substance is in the trial courts. I'm proud to say that I practice both in the High Court as well as the trial courts. As far as trial court practice is concerned, I'm sure, and I agree with all of you, that there's a lot to be done. Lots and lots to be done. And I feel we have been neglected totally by your 22 law schools that you have been speaking about. I have a daughter who went to the National Law School of India University, had 3 gold medals with her. She went to Balliol, she went to New York Law School, everywhere. I find her to be academically very, very, very well off, really good with her knowledge. But when it comes to practical realities of taking up any trial matter, she actually does not have as much experience, as much knowledge, or does not have the in-depth feeling of oneness with the trial work itself. That's, I feel, more because the academic education is alienating the students away from the reality of the courts. The real courts is where the lawyers practice. But I'm sorry to say, when you start dictating to a trial court lawyer, start with before the Honorable Sessions Court, he writes Honorable Sessions Court. This is what is being taught. This is what I also inherit. I really do not equip myself. What I have to do is equipping myself and see that the others are also equipped well. This formal training and education which you are talking about, as far as the other law schools or other law institutions are, like the one I went to the Madras Law College, presently called as the Dr. Ambedkar Law College. We did not really have the faculty which inspired us as much as we would have wanted to be. But still, we did have a few coming from the bar. Teaching us from their experience, our CPC lecturer was from the bar. Our evidence law lecturer was a bar at law, Mr. Kuppusamy. So what happens? He's now no more. We now actually recollect those advocates who are practicing, who came up, Justice Venkata Murthy. He later became Justice Venkata Murthy, but he taught us Transfer of Property Act. These lawyers who came to teach us inspired us. They made us also understand that litigation is actually mind-boggling. Litigation is something which is a challenge that would be thrown out to intellectuals. But as on date, litigation seems to be the last resort for people who do not have any other recourse to their livelihood. This is what it is today as such. Litigations really should attract the best of talents. As the Vice-Chancellor said, I feel the academicians should be allowed to practice law. Maybe, at least as he's rightly said, public law, if not other laws. I think we'll have to appeal to people like Mr. Prabakaran that we will have to rethink, we'll have to reorient ourselves. Why not? Just because they are earning and they are given UGC scales, it doesn't mean that they should not litigate. And just because I litigate, it doesn't mean that I should not be given space to teach. I could be given some seminar classes. I could also share my experience with others. So this sort of an intermingling, this sort of an interchange and exchange is absolutely necessary if you really think that law education, that you want to train lawyers. If you want to train lawyers, there should be a system where we can train them continuously. After I finish my law degree and come back, now at least there is something called an entrance examination before or immediately after you enroll. But earlier, we didn't have even that much. And the examination also, which is presently being conducted, does not test our knowledge. It only tests my memory. It does not test my knowledge at all. So I think there is an essential need for funding such specialized courses, specialized means of continuing education, which should be given a sort of a recognition, and we should also ensure that we build up the system of judiciary much more and not take to alternate dispute resolutions, which I feel are abdication of judicial responsibilities. That I think the Vice-Chancellor would agree with me, because though talking about alternate dispute resolutions and mediations and arbitration is fanciful, and it pays to the arbitrator as well as to the persons who are litigating, because it gives you a speedy, effective, so-called effective rather, this easy bargaining capacity to some of them. And what this happens is, this throws way to a system where judiciary is actually relegated to the background. I feel we have got to enhance and equip this system of judiciary with so much of skills, so much of technical know-how, with also the infrastructure needed, with also multiplying the number of judges, the entire infrastructure, and ensure that there are more number of courts. Ensure that there is really speedy justice given, not merely for the criminal case, not merely for a trial of anything which comes under the special criminal laws or the Indian Penal Code, but even for corporate law. Now, what is happening today is corporate law is trying to get itself out of the mainstream itself. They are trying to capture another area. They would sit in this hotel, as the Vice-Chancellor rightly said, and try to negotiate and try to come out with some settlements within themselves. And such settlements are definitely not judicial. Such settlements are in the form of, I call it Kata Panchayat, definitely, or at least it is more for the rich and the powerful, not for the faceless and the voiceless, for whose rights people like me fight. I belong to the People's Union for Civil Liberties. We have been fighting for the faceless and the voiceless people for the last few decades. Ever since the emergency days when Jayaprakash Narayan called for the formation of PUCL, people like me have been there. We feel that we do not have enough resources. We really feel that we do not have the manpower which we would otherwise would have liked to have. There are a few students from the national law schools who come to intern in offices like mine, but not many go to grassroots NGOs, grassroots rights organizations to fight for causes of the faceless and the voiceless. I think that is where you'll have to think about not the mere fanciful moot courts. We're sitting in Geneva doing some moot court business there. They are essential. I don't say you should abdicate all foreign journeys or your all your academics with the help of the Harvard or Yale or other universities. But I think a sort of a grassroots equipping lawyers with grassroots knowledge is very, very essential, and recognizing such lawyers is also very essential. K.J. Kannabaran used to always tell me, he was the earlier president of the People's Union for Civil Liberties also, he used to tell me, actually, even the magistrate will have to be taught that he can administer constitution. It is not as if he only sits with the criminal laws. Thank you for this opportunity.
I'll just sum up in 2 minutes. It is no more alternate dispute resolution, but it is appropriate dispute resolution now. That should be remembered. The second point is, without basic honesty and fundamental ethics, nobody, however brilliant, can be called a professional. So if lawyers want themselves to be called professionals, there must be fundamental ethics. We should all remember, legal profession is the only profession to be mentioned in the Constitution of India. Let us not let it down. Let us join our hands together to train law students and lawyers to fulfill the constitutional mandate stated in the preamble of the Constitution.
Thank you very much, sir, and sorry for cutting you short. We have a very tight schedule ahead of us. May I request Mr. Prabhu Chavla to kindly join us on stage, do the honors, and present mementos to our eminent panelists, please. A big round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. We'd like to say a big thank you to Ms. Sudha Ramalingam, our chairperson, Mr. Venkata, and Mr. Faizan Mustafa, and of course, Mr. Prabakaran as well. A quick group photo opportunity. Mr. Prabhu Chavla, we'd request you to stay back on stage because you will be chairing the next and the last panel discussion of the day. We're very happy to have amidst us the Honorable Chief Minister of Puducherry, Shri V. Narayanaswamy. Thank you very much for being here, sir.